Hello, folks. Welcome to LTI LinkedIn Live. My name is Rohit Kedia. I lead the manufacturing and energy business at LTI. I'll be talking to Bill Johnson today. Bill is the Chief Transformation Officer at DCP Midstream. DCP is one of the largest oil and gas midstream companies in the United States and was recently inducted by World Economic Forum in the Global Lighthouse Network. The Lighthouse Network is a community of very few companies that have adopted Industry 4.0 at scale. DCP is one of those very few companies. Bill really has led that journey over many years at DCP, and it's a privilege to be able to talk to him today. So without further ado, let me welcome Bill to the conversation. Hey, Bill, how are you?
I'm great, Rohit. Thanks for having me. Great to see you and good to connect here. Glad to be here and thanks again for having me.
It's a pleasure. You know, I looked up the Denver weather prior to the conversation today, and I saw that it's as warm, almost as warm it's been as it is in Dallas, huh? So you have some.
Yes, I think it was in the 80s here yesterday. It's an unusual fall, but I'll take it. I'm not a super cold weather guy, so I'm perfectly happy with it.
The difference is in Dallas when it's warm, we go inside. In Denver, when it's warm, you guys go outside.
True.
Hey, listen, thank you for joining us today. Let me kick things off. So tell us a little bit about the Lighthouse Network. What is it, and why was this such an important recognition for DCP?
Yeah, we're really excited about it. So the Global Lighthouse Network, it's a program sponsored by the World Economic Forum and co-led for them by McKinsey. And they scour the world looking for what they call lighthouse cases in digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution. And it's a really interesting program. They've been doing it for a few years now. I think after our induction and several other companies last month, I think there are 54 cases now that they've given this recognition to. So we're really excited to be one of those, one of the few in North America, and definitely the only North American oil and gas company. So very excited. It's a program where they look at companies that are really driving transformation in their business and using what they call fourth industrial revolution technologies. Everything from IoT to advanced analytics to RPA and many other things that we're doing that I'm sure we'll talk about in the business. And then they do a pretty exhaustive study of the company. And interestingly, instead of traveling from Geneva this year, we did it all virtually. They spent multiple hours on Zoom calls with our team. And a pretty thorough investigation of what we're doing, what kind of results we're getting, how things are working. And then a few months later, we were notified that we were going to be recognized. So I'm really excited on behalf of the team. It's a great recognition of the work done. And as you said, several years of effort working on our business and working with our people. So we're definitely excited about it.
You know, it'll be good for the audience to get to know a little bit about DCP's business and perhaps also why was it important for the company to think about this journey a few years ago? What led to that? What were you hoping to achieve? Tell us a little bit about DCP's business and why this transformation was so important.
Sure. Well, DCP is primarily a midstream company, which means we sit in the middle of the value chain between people that produce oil and gas and end users. So we're typically selling either chemical feedstocks or natural gas to utilities and other things. So gas that comes out of the ground is not ready to be used in a power plant or used in your home or whatever. So our job is we gather gas from producers and we treat it and clean it and make it ready for the markets, and we extract liquids from it, and then we transport gas and liquids to the places where we sell them. So we operate about 60,000 miles of pipeline in the U.S. between 40 and 50 gas processing plants. It's a lot of infrastructure spread out over a lot of geography. So that's kind of fundamentally what we do. When we really talk about what we do, we help provide energy. We build connections. We build physical connections by pipelines. We also build connections in our communities and with our employees, and we enable better lives. So when we talk about DCP, that's what we talk about: building connections to enable better lives, providing good, reliable, clean energy to allow people to have a better standard of living and better lives. So fundamentally, that's the business of DCP. It's oil and gas. It's a hard business. It's a cyclical business. I think our DCP 2.0 efforts and our entire transformation of the company effort really started born out of a downturn in this business in 2015. And at that point, I was running a business unit. As you know, Rohit, I'm not a technology person by background. So I've spent my career working in operations and engineering and leading businesses in energy. And in the downturn in 2015, between myself and our CEO, Wouter, we spent a lot of time talking about, hey, we should be able to do things differently in this business. This business still operates largely like it did 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. We still have people driving around, writing stuff down on clipboards and doing data entry. And we just spent a lot of time talking about, hey, how is everything else in my life on one of these? And yet we're still using clipboards and paper. And I can't see what's going on in all the assets in real time, but I can see everything else going on in the world in real time, just not what's happening in our business. So that was really the genesis of the effort and the transformation of DCP. And we started doing a lot of investigation with LTI, with many others, visiting high-tech companies. We talked a lot about, hey, there's not a lot of good digital transformation, especially back in 2016 and 2017. Not a lot of good examples in oil and gas. So we spent a lot of time talking to retail companies and banks and logistics companies and airlines and other people about how they did things and how that might apply in our business. So that's a little bit about DCP and how we got started on this journey. We really needed to figure out how to extract differential value from the assets, and in a downturn, all of the traditional, I'll say, corporate measures that you take during a downturn, cost cutting. Unfortunately, we had some layoffs, and everything to buying cheaper coffee in the office and things like that. Those are things that are really going to move the needle on the company. And we really thought, hey, going digital and transforming and using new technology and new processes and better enabling our people was the key to success. So that's how we got started.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say this, talking about tech and you not being a tech person, if somebody were to look at your Twitter feed right now, they are sure to confuse you with somebody who is like a startup geek in the Bay Area. So I wouldn't hold that against you anymore. I remember some of those early trips that we took together, and digital transformation has been such a buzz, but very few companies have been able to establish that connection between the art of the possible and the buzz and the business value. Did you have to establish like a business case upfront 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Did you have to take a leap of faith? Sometimes I feel that digital transformation requires a leap of faith, because it's not that you're trying to repeat something that's proven to begin with. So you're not going to be able to go with existing benchmarks and build a business case. Tell us what was the journey like when you had to sort of set aside investment and convince the entire organization that the investment's worth it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did struggle with this a little bit at the beginning about, hey, we're a company that makes makes big infrastructure investments, and we study those for a long time, and we spend years in engineering and design. And when you're going to build a gas plant and a gathering system that costs $500 million, you're not doing that in an experimental way. It better work. And so, I mean, even kind of culturally in the company, we had to adjust ourselves to say, hey, we need more of an experimentation culture. We need more openness to trying things and realizing things may not work out. And I think those are some of the things we learned on those trips. Getting right to your question, I think it's a mix. I mean, there's definitely a leap of faith involved in doing some of these things. At the same time, again, my background coming right, I was directly in the business, responsible for a P&L of a piece of the business. And so I knew there was a business case there, and I knew there was value to be had. And the primary sources of value that I could see were, like I said earlier, being able to see the business in real time and better optimize and react to what was going on, and then really digitally enabling our people. And making them more efficient and more effective. And so kind of coming out of those visits, we had this premise that those two sources of value were there. I was convinced it was significant value, but then also we didn't want to overstudy this, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted to just get started. So I think I do see that with some other companies that they try to run such a rigorous business case and analysis and know exactly how much value they're going to deliver. Of course, it was important to us to deliver value, but I think you can get yourself caught up in that, and it becomes something that bogs the effort down. And so for us, it was a combination of kind of gut feel and knowing and doing some math around the value that we thought, and then kind of going on faith. And at a certain point, we went to our board and we said, hey, we're gonna launch off on this. And they asked me some pretty pointed questions about the business case, but we just said we were going to deliver, and we did. And so I think it's a good, healthy combination, but I would encourage people not to get, if you're too bogged down in business cases, it's hard to get started.
Yeah. One of the quotes that I remember from an entrepreneur, there's always risk involved. If there is no risk, then by definition, it might mean that the reward itself isn't going to be that high either. So, I remember this quote, jump and a net will appear. Now, doesn't mean that you don't do some due diligence around what are the sources of value, but you can't get caught up in that. So you went about, you connected a bunch of equipment, you started to get this data, you gave some tools to your people. It's been 4 years. What has been the biggest sources of value? Was it like visibility into real-time operations? Was it the ability to monetize the data that you got? Was it the ability to remotely operate some of that equipment? Like, if you were to look back and say, what led to most value, what is that?
I think the most value probably from real-time visibility and optimization. And maybe a little story about that. I mean, when we started, a business unit leader in this company, or somebody that was responsible for optimizing and driving the profitability of the company, it's a complicated business, right? And we had very siloed systems. So our engineering data for the company and the engineering information around the assets was in one system. The financials were in a different system. The pricing was in a different system. The operational data was in a different system. And so, really you didn't know how the business was performing financially. You had some gut feel for it, but you couldn't really see that and optimize it only on basically a monthly basis with the revenue cycle and the accounting cycle. So, and I wouldn't know how the business performed that I was responsible for until, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 12 days into the following month. And there can be counterintuitive things that happen in the business because of the complexity of the contracts and the pricing structures and all of that. And so fundamentally, we were able to connect all that together so that you can see really the profitability and the performance of the company in real time. And I can pull that up for the whole company or sub parts of the company in real time, and that allows us to drive a very rapid cycle of optimization across the assets. And so I think our biggest value delivery has been around that, and it's tens of millions of dollars to our company to be able to do that and react to situations and re-optimize the assets. Now, I also don't want to discount the value that's come from enabling employees and kind of upskilling or and automation. We've certainly done a ton of RPA work and everything else, and so I think across the board, but definitely the most value came from the concept that we call our ICC, or our Integrated Collaboration Center, where we're able to, in one platform, connect all these systems that used to be siloed and really see and drive the business in real time.
Yeah, I mean, in other words, the value that exists at the convergence of operations, financial, commercial data, because you're now able to optimize that more quickly and as a whole, rather than just trying to optimize operations or just trying to optimize pricing, for example. That's the power of digital transformation, but it happens when you sort of convert the digital and the physical worlds together. So you're getting the operations data out of your equipment, but you're meshing that in interesting ways with the data from your contracts, which also requires some level of extraction given RPA and the nature of those contracts, and then the commercial data, and sort of bringing it together into this single command center, the ICC, and that's it's a fantastic story. I mean, it's quite amazing. Bill, there aren't very many companies out there who can claim to say that not only have we done it, but we have done it at scale, right? Because the thing is, you can prove the concept, but unless you scale it, it still doesn't return, it's still not the business case. So when you scaled your digital transformation, which means all of these lengths of pipeline, multiple gas processing plants, were there challenges along the way, or was it just that, okay, once you have a solution, you could just scale it quickly?
No, it was just completely easy. It was no problem. No, I'm kidding. Of course, there were challenges, and I think I think it took a lot of fortitude, and I think that's what it takes. I mean, you talked about earlier about it being a leap of faith to do these things, and I think to some extent there were certainly moments when we felt like that hey, is this really going to work? And there are also, hey, this is a good business, it's a mature business, and so some people that have been doing it for a long time don't think that all this transformation is necessary. And so, I think you find pockets in the organization, and I think you'd find this in any industry or any business. You find people and parts of the organization that are very excited about this, and you find other places where people maybe aren't that excited about it. And I think for us, kind of pushing through that, it's taking a lot of leadership intention and diligence and follow-up was important, and it was very important for us to have the executive team of the company really on board with this. And I give a lot of credit to my colleagues for that, and the whole company for really again, just sort of having the perseverance to push through, because I think you see all kinds of charts of like cycles and curves about adoption curves or other things, and you definitely go through a period of time in these efforts where you wonder, hey, are we just believing our own book or our own story, or are we really doing something here? And I think being able to push through that and having the vision and the leadership kind of stick-to-itiveness was really what helped us get through. And we still, we're still scaling. So we've got the ICC deployed across the entire company. just in the last year, we've started actually not just remotely optimizing the assets, but remotely operating the assets. And even that still comes with challenges. I mean, we see results from that, and we see when we pull the operations into a central facility, and no discredit to all of our people that are out in facilities running operations. We find we can do even a little bit better when we have those people together and we have the full resources of the collaboration center brought to bear. And so, but we continue to work to scale this across the business. And yeah, that does come with challenges. And it's, from my standpoint, it's just a matter of, believing in it, being able to prove the business case, and not giving up too easily along the way.
There's always the valley of despair. It's never easy. You are in a commodities business where, frankly, cents can make a huge difference to the bottom line of the company. So that last bit of optimization that you can draw by bringing all of this data together in the collaboration center and driving that optimization decisions, there's just so much value out there. You talked about adoption, and one thing is to bring the technology and get the capabilities in place. Another thing is to try and change the behaviors of people across the board, not just at the executive layer, to be able to adopt, to really find new ways of working. Did you have to do something special to bring about a cultural change in addition to driving the new capabilities which were technology driven in the company, just to get the most value out of it? Was there resistance along the way, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've worked hard on the culture here, and I could talk about that a little bit. I think, it was a learning early on for me, and I think, it maybe seems so obvious, and probably a lot of people would say, well, that's not a learning, that's just common sense, or it's obvious. But I think when we started, we thought this was just going to be really about technology. Like, hey, we'll give people some cool tools on their phone, and of course they'll use them, and it'll be great, and it'll be easy to drive adoption. But we quickly adopted this framework around people, process, and technology. And I think, because again, I started and I thought this was just a technology play, and maybe that's just naive on my part. But I had somebody say to me early on in our journey, hey, when you put this really cool technology on top of what might be a fundamentally bad work process, then you're just going to have a more efficient bad work process. And so, we put work, and we continue to look at ways of putting work into really improving and streamlining our work processes. And we use a number of tools for that, or techniques to try to streamline and lean out our work processes. And then again, on the culture side and the people side, everything from some training and multi-skilling to just talking openly about our culture and what we want to be, and encouraging people to be involved and drive some experiments and get a little different vibe or culture going in the company. I think, one thing is we took a very user-centered design thinking kind of approach to our work. And that's not something that's typical in a company like ours. I mean, normally the way we would design new tools or systems is people like me that have been in the business for 20 or 25 years sit in the office building in Denver and think that we know how things should work. And we draw a process on a whiteboard and we hand it to our IT department and we say, hey, make this workflow work, and they spend a year doing that, and then we roll it out to people and they don't use it and they say it's terrible. And that's because we don't really know what's going on or how to make things more efficient. And we shouldn't ever in this world spend a year or more designing or building a system. So adopting agile style development tools, working very closely with people that do the real work in our company out in the field, and thoughts about how to make things better and what would really make their jobs easier, not what I think would make their jobs easier. And so I think culturally that helped us drive a lot of change when we showed that we were serious about that and committed to it and would really take people's ideas and ultimately, we had a philosophy in our team of people in the company should feel like almost like they built the tools themselves, not like it's our team providing something to them. So, and I think that's a big shift for a company like ours, going to an agile, user-centered, design-focused approach, as opposed to more of the kind of traditional top-down, hey, we know how to fix things approach.
Yeah. You said it's common sense. I'll tell you, the common sense is not so common in this case, because I look at industrial companies around me, and traditionally what has made industrial companies efficient is really sort of a top-down, rigor-based, method-oriented approach to running a business. And now you're entering this new world where you put the users, the human, at the center of the universe. And I think you guys realized that very early on. I remember walking the halls in some of your agile studios, the floors that you set up where the tech people were working side by side with the end users. And I think in addition to creating the right product, like you said, it just drove acceptance right from the beginning. There is this so much written about org change management. I think what is not enough written is change management is solving a problem after the fact. I think you should make the change that much more attractive to begin with. And I think the user-centric design is at the heart of that. And you guys, absolutely did it right.
Yeah, I love stories about that, Rohit, because I think if you think about adoption in your personal life, and we tried to very much have that approach, right? If to use Uber or to use my Chase Bank app or whatever, I had to go to the headquarters of those companies and take 8 hours of change management training to be able to use the stuff. Like, I never would have done it, right? No one would do that. And I use that stuff because it's easy and it's cool and it makes my life better. And I think too many times in workplaces, people don't have that attitude. We try to force stuff on people versus if the stuff we develop is any good, people will just use it because it's the same reason you use your bank app rather than go to the bank, or the same reason you use Uber rather than try to call the taxi service. And why shouldn't people at work have that same experience? They absolutely should.
Absolutely. I've got one final point to talk to you about. So what's next? Obviously, there is DCP Ventures. There is more innovation along the way. So tell us about what the future could look like.
Yeah, I think, if you think about what I talked about, we've pulled the insight. One way I like to talk about this is we've pulled the insight from the business from a very sort of backward looking, kind of lagging, like, hey, I don't really know what's happening until 6 weeks later, to, hey, we're in real time now. What would it look like, or what does it mean to actually operate in the future? And so I think using machine learning and AI kind of concepts, and can I actually proactively? So I'm not reacting after something has happened. I'm not just reacting in real time, but I'm actually know or have a good idea about what's going to happen in the future, and I'm driving the business to optimization even ahead of time. And so I think we're thinking a lot about that conceptually, and how to do that and how to use some of that technology. I think we're doing some. I think another area that we're exploring deeply is kind of the merging or the coming together of technology and ESG concepts. It's very important to our business. We're a responsible operator. We work very hard. We believe in gas and hydrocarbon energy sources. We believe that has enabled great quality of life in the world. At the same time, we intend to do the business very efficiently and very safely and in as an environmentally soundly way as possible. And I think a lot of new technology, a lot of the work that our ventures team is working on is kind of aimed at that. How do we, how do we continue to identify areas, everything from assessing our assets, and we're doing pilots with several small companies on better assessment of assets or remote assessment of assets or checking for leaks or allowing us to more frequently check our assets than we can even have a physical person go drive around and see all the assets. So kind of, how we participate with new sources of energy and things like that. Certainly carbon capture and sequestration is an area we're investigating pretty deeply across our assets and have a pilot or two going on that. And so I think that's a big part of what's next for us, is kind of the intersection of the transformation we've done, the fourth industrial revolution, a lot of the technologies, with kind of environmental and sustainability concepts, and how we use that to continue to make the business better. I would say that's a lot of the future for us.
Wow, that's awesome. One thing we didn't talk about is, in all of this, there is leadership, but let me just talk about that for the benefit of the audience. It's not easy when you start on a journey like this, because there are 9 reasons why it could go wrong and only 1 why it could go right. And it takes a ton of conviction and belief and energy to drive this. So I remember 4 or 5 years ago, those trips to the Bay Area, and how curiously you were investigating the companies that had achieved success, as well as the companies that had failed and why they had failed. And the amount of energy you drove. I mean, if somebody were to do a text analytics on your Twitter feeds in the last 5 years, they'll realize how you drove the entire organization towards a common mission. So tremendous leadership, Bill. Tremendous leadership. It's never easy to, I wrote you in the email, it's never easy to, a lot of people can think digital transformation. Very few people can truly do digital transformation. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, and I really appreciate that. It's only enabled by having a great team, and I would say I think getting this World Economic Forum recognition has created a moment for me to reflect on that a little bit. And if I think about the evolution of our team, we have a great team today. We have multiple team members that have spun off and are leading their own versions of transformations at other companies, and I'm super grateful for them, for their contributions they made on our team while they're there. I'm very happy for them to be doing what they're doing and being successful in their career. So we had a great team early on. We have a great team today that continues to change, and certainly you give credit to leadership. I appreciate that, but it's definitely also on the foundation of a great team that's willing and able and has had the skills and fortitude to push through and make a ton of things happen.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Well, listen, thank you for joining us today. This was a fantastic talk. I look forward to being in Denver, hopefully sometime soon. And we'll see you in person. We'll get a beer together. But thank you for joining us today.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
All right. Enjoy the weather.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Bye.